accused of orchestrating a public appearance where he signed autographs during Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's legal battle.
Pathetic. Oh.
So Ryan Reynolds obviously has to be deported back to. The moral crimes committed here by Ryan Reynolds against Justin Baldoni have amounted to high treason.
For more than 3 decades, Ryan Reynolds has skillfully built Hollywood's ultimate nice guy image. From his early days as a teenage soap opera heartthrob to becoming the quick-witted, charismatic star of blockbuster hits like Deadpool, Reynolds has mastered the art of charm and humor. His ability to balance comedy, action, and heart has made him one of the industry's most beloved and bankable actors. Throughout his career, he has carefully maintained a flawless public image, winning over fans with his relatable personality, sharp wit, and down-to-earth nature both on and off the screen.
I just can't imagine what it feels like to be told that you got to leave your home, let alone with 15 minutes notice.
We were just feeling a tremendous amount of empathy for the displaced families in Ukraine. So
everyone wants to be friends with someone who's funny, charming, relatable, and endlessly generous. And when it comes to that, Ryan Reynolds fits the bill perfectly. We're talking about the man who effortlessly donated a staggering $1 million to support Ukrainian refugees without seeking attention for it. His heartwarming venture with Wrexham Football Club had fans everywhere swooning, with many even calling him the real-life Ted Lasso. This guy wasn't just playing the role of Mr. Nice Guy on screen, he was the true embodiment of it in Hollywood and beyond.
Lively, it was Ryan Reynolds, this was their strategy, and now they kind of want to put the genie back in the bottle, but guess what? The genie does not want to go back in the bottle.
But now, after decades of carefully building his flawless reputation, Ryan Reynolds' pristine image is crashing down in a truly spectacular way. And the reason? None other than his wife, Blake Lively, whose explosive feud with Justin Baldoni has sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Yes, Blake Lively, the former Gossip Girl queen of drama, has somehow managed to pull her husband straight into the middle of one of the nastiest, most scandalous legal battles the industry has seen in years.
Lately, everyone is bashing Blake Lively, but apparently the true villain in this saga is...
And just like that, Reynolds is no longer the funny, lovable guy everyone adored. Instead, he's being painted as the co-conspirator in a ruthless scheme, one designed to sabotage Baldoni's career, take over his film, and drag his name through the mud in every major tabloid imaginable. Sounds completely insane, right? That's exactly what we thought when whispers of Ryan's alleged involvement in this explosive scandal first surfaced. But here's the thing. Once you start peeling back the layers, you'll realize this story runs far deeper than anyone initially suspected.
Everything started when Ryan Reynolds decided to stroll onto the movie set one day and review the dailies.
Lately, it seems like everyone is taking shots at Blake Lively, blaming her for all the chaos surrounding this drama. But surprisingly, the real mastermind behind this entire saga isn't who you'd expect. Beneath all the headlines and social media outrage, there's a deeper story unfolding, one that exposes the true villain pulling the strings behind the scenes.
This is the guy who made all these posters. He realized that he made the posters for the allegedly fake paparazzi shoot with Ryan Reynolds.
In just the last few months, Ryan Reynolds has gone from a universally adored actor to an alleged puppet master at the center of a growing scandal. Justin Baldoni has accused him of not only helping Blake push him out of his own film, but also orchestrating a ruthless, media-fueled takedown to cancel him entirely. We're talking about secret meetings inside Reynolds' luxurious Manhattan mansion, where he reportedly delivered some carefully veiled but undeniably menacing threats, all while flashing that signature, charming yet unsettling smile.
He was either reading her text messages, reading through the dailies, reading through the script, and he just decided, okay, you know what? This entire production needs to be halted. I don't trust my wife, okay? And my strongest inclination for that was the fact that on the day that the SAG-AFTRA strike ended, on the day that both of them had to go back to work, meaning Ryan had to go back to film for Wolverine and Deadpool, Wayfarer gets that shocking email of demands, and basically their production gets suspended while Ryan gets to go in the UK and feel confident knowing that she's not going to see Justin Baldoni until he's back. That was just my speculation. Well, in the recent filing, we can now see that Ryan was panicked in general about him being apart from Blake Lively. So much so that when they first communicated with one another, okay, so this is the first time that Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni are speaking to one another, and they're exchanging text messages, and Justin Baldoni does this thing where he's just like so nice and was like, he literally, to sum it up, because I'm not going to read Justin's entire text, he basically is like, I was nervous to even text you. I'm such a fan of you. Like, you're so.
Now that everything has spiraled completely out of control, Hollywood's golden couple is scrambling to do some serious damage control. In a desperate bid to salvage his sinking reputation, Ryan Reynolds has just been exposed for organizing a staged paparazzi moment. Yep, you heard that right. His team set up highly suspicious autograph sessions featuring autograph resellers disguised as devoted fans. Sounds crazy, right? But the most shocking part is how painfully obvious the entire setup was. If you've seen the clip, you'd cringe harder than watching the most awkward rom-com ever. Using fake fans just to manipulate the public and cling to the Mr. Nice Guy narrative was the final straw. And guess what? People aren't falling for this ridiculous stunt anymore.
Amazing. And it then says this like really almost first day of middle school kind of thing where he's like, all of this to say, I know I sound ridiculous, but like, I just really want to be friends with you. Like, he literally tells Ryan he wants to be friends with you. And I could just see Ryan sitting there like, yes, this is exactly what I want.
This is the same guy who designed all those posters, only to realize later that he had unknowingly created the ones used for Ryan Reynolds' allegedly staged paparazzi shoot. Talk about irony. Today, we're diving deep into this jaw-dropping scandal, unpacking every messy detail, from the carefully orchestrated paparazzi moments to Ryan's frantic attempts to salvage his image. And let's not forget Blake's relentless ambition, which might just be the very thing that drags them both down for good. Buckle up, because Hollywood's ultimate nice guy is on the verge of being exposed as public enemy number one. And trust me, you won't believe just how fast and hard he's crashing.
I have rich and powerful friends at the top. Ryan Reynolds is throwing down some alpha male, and by alpha male, I mean extremely beta male.
You know what's absolutely mind-blowing about Ryan Reynolds and this shocking downward spiral? Just months ago, he was honored with Canada's highest civilian award, the Officer of the Order of Canada, recognizing not only his undeniable charm on screen, but also his relentless dedication to philanthropy and good causes. And honestly, credit where it's due. He and his PR team worked overtime to craft this flawless, nice guy image that had everyone completely convinced, no questions asked. Ryan Reynolds wasn't just a Hollywood star, he was the guy your mom wished you'd marry, the friend everyone wanted to grab a beer with, and the celebrity even your dad had to admit he respected.
And I guess you've already met Mary Poppins, a.k.a. Dogpool. Careful where you put your hand. She's 90% G-spot, and she'll let you know it. You let this little flirt out of your sight for 1 second, and she starts shopping for a new papa. If you can't be a responsible pet owner, then maybe you don't deserve this little unicorn. Guilty on all charges, Your Honor.
Now, he's found himself dragged straight into the heart of Hollywood's nastiest feud, one that wasn't even his to begin with, at least not at first. At first glance, it seems perfectly normal for him to stand by Blake Lively's side. After all, she's his wife, and supporting her should be expected. But when you really take a closer look at how this legal war with Justin Baldoni spiraled into something that feels ripped straight from a high-stakes Netflix thriller, you can't help but wonder just how much of a role Ryan actually played. One thing about Ryan Reynolds is clear. He absolutely thrives on crafting larger-than-life spectacles. And even outspoken commentator Candace Owens pointed out that Ryan never truly warmed up to Justin. In fact, if you dig a little deeper, it turns out he never actually liked him at all.
He's going, nothing in this scene is funny. Nothing in this scene makes sense. Why is he alleging that his wife is trying to place him in a skit which is promoting domestic violence?
Everything erupted in December when Lively filed a jaw-dropping lawsuit, accusing Justin of sexual harassment, retaliation, and orchestrating a full-blown smear campaign against her. We're talking over 150 pages of detailed legal documents, an explosive, scandalous revelation that instantly dominated headlines. But Baldoni, completely blindsided at first, wasn't about to take this lying down. When he hit back, he didn't just defend himself, he took direct aim at Hollywood's golden couple. That was the exact moment Reynolds got officially sucked into the chaos. In his massive $400 million counter lawsuit, Baldoni dropped a bombshell allegation, claiming Reynolds wasn't just a supportive husband standing by Blake's side, he was a key player, actively scheming with Lively to seize control of the film project. And here's the craziest part. Baldoni actually admired Reynolds. He respected his Hollywood achievements so much that during their first conversation, when Ryan asked if they could shift the production schedule to fit his availability, Baldoni immediately said yes without hesitation.
Well, it's not every day the mother-in-law of the leading lady gets to interview the love interest, and the man trying to replace my sweet little gummy bear, Ryan. Let's dive in, shall we?
He then wasted no time asking Justin Baldoni to shift the production schedule just because he couldn't stand being away from Blake Lively for too long. The thing is, Justin had absolutely no obligation to agree to this request. After all, his business was with Blake, not Ryan. Yet, despite having no real reason to, he still went along with it without hesitation. Why? Because he was trying to be accommodating, keep the peace, and maybe even impress someone he once saw as a Hollywood icon. He wanted to play it cool, be the nice guy, and show respect to his industry idol.
Ms. Reynolds.
Call me Blake.
Oh,
I could blow your mind, dog.
Oh, man.
It's not every day a guy gets to interview the love interest of his best friend's wife, and the guy trying to replace Ryan as a husband and me as his best mate.
Holy
So listen, I've just got one question. What the hell are you doing messing with my best buddy's wife?
Sir, I have no idea what's happening.
You're probably wondering how things went from a friendly, laid-back conversation between two industry peers to Baldoni now accusing Reynolds of masterminding a full-scale, well-funded takedown of his entire career and public image. Well, in Hollywood, 6 months is more than enough time for one world to crumble and a whole new one to rise. Baldoni insists that Reynolds used his immense power behind the scenes, intimidating and pressuring anyone who dared to challenge them. Suddenly, the so-called Mr. Nice Guy didn't seem so nice anymore. In fact, maybe he never was. Because, let's be real, how else do you explain the uncanny resemblance between those smooth-talking, smirking Deadpool scenes and this whole chaotic scandal? It's almost as if Reynolds was throwing subtle shade at both his wife and her director in that scene.
Thrilling in our house right now. We help each other, we work together so much. The iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that but you.
When people finally connected the dots and uncovered the hidden message behind this bizarre scene, Hollywood collectively gasped in shock. This wasn't just some juicy scandal. It was downright mind-blowing. Could Ryan Reynolds, the beloved Canadian sweetheart with this squeaky clean reputation, really be capable of something so calculated, so manipulative, and so deliberately malicious? The idea that he went as far as sneaking a scene into his own blockbuster franchise just to take a dig at Baldoni sounded ridiculous at first. But the moment you actually sit down and watch that scene with fresh eyes, it becomes crystal clear there's no way this was just a random coincidence. The details are too precise, too specific, and way too intentional to ignore.
But he wrote it. He works on everything I do. I work on everything he does. So his wins, his celebrations are mine, and mine are his. I mean, he's all over this film.
This revelation shattered the carefully crafted image Reynolds had spent years building. Fans quickly connected the dots and realized that Reynolds wasn't just standing by his wife's side. He was actively working behind the scenes to dismantle another man's career. But here's the shocking part. Reynolds didn't stop with the Deadpool scene. After he and Blake successfully took control of the movie from Baldoni, he doubled down with a series of promotional skits, and this time, his jabs at Baldoni weren't subtle at all. Even Candace was left stunned. After all, how often does the mother-in-law of the leading lady get to interview both the love interest and the man allegedly trying to replace her son-in-law? Let's dive in. If you're wondering how this skit ties into the movie's theme, you're not alone. It's bizarre that Reynolds, of all people, was the one front and center in these promo clips, especially for a movie where his wife was merely a co-star. Most people had no clue that by this point, the so-called coup had already been staged. Then came the now infamous exchange. "You call me Blake? Oh, I could blow your mind, dog." What followed was even more cringeworthy. Man, it's not every day you get to interview your best friend's wife's love interest, and the guy trying to replace him as a husband. The tension was thick, and Reynolds' delivery made the underlying message crystal clear. The innuendo. And that skit was impossible to ignore. It painted a stark contrast between Reynolds' charming, lovable public persona and the cold, calculated power moves he was making behind closed doors. this wasn't the Ryan Reynolds everyone thought they knew. His involvement in this scandal was anything but heroic. It was manipulative, messy, and ugly. The legal battle may have been officially labeled as Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni, but in reality, it felt like Reynolds was the real opponent here. The fact that he refuses to be apart from his wife and has now inserted himself into every aspect of this film is downright suspicious. And then came the jaw-dropping moment. Let's take you straight to the scene of the crime, the glitzy new. York City premiere of It Ends With Us. Flashing cameras, buzzing reporters, and a radiant Blake Lively soaking in the spotlight. And that's when she casually dropped the bombshell that no one saw coming. During what seemed like an innocent red carpet chat with E! News, Blake, without hesitation, revealed something that changed everything. The now infamous rooftop scene, the one I presented as my creative vision, well, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that. But you do now. Yep, she said that. On camera. For the world to hear. Live TV, do you know how bold and self-assured you have to be to drop a revelation like that on a live broadcast? Blake didn't just accidentally let a small detail slip. She exposed a hidden truth that shattered the entire narrative she had been selling to the world, and more importantly, to Baldoni himself. But the real kicker? She doubled down on it. He wrote it. He works on everything I do, and I work on everything he does. His wins, his celebrations, they're mine and mine are his. I mean, he's all over this film. That's what she said. She didn't hesitate, didn't stutter, didn't try to sugarcoat it. And in that one moment, everything became painfully clear. It's no surprise that Reynolds was deeply involved in this project, even though he had zero contractual obligations to it. The man wasn't just being a supportive husband, he was practically running the show from behind the scenes. When Blake says jump, he asks how high, and vice versa. At first, most fans didn't read too much into this interview when it aired 7 months ago. It just seemed like another typical Hollywood couple hyping up their work. But now, in light of everything that has happened since, the outrage has been absolutely insane. Thousands of fans and critics who had followed every update about this, filled with excitement, now feel completely blindsided. And it's not just because Blake was caught red-handed in a lie, it's because people actually feel bad for Baldoni. The biggest question that kept circling around was simple. Why did Blake go out of her way to present the rooftop scene as her personal creative victory when, in reality, she was just a mouthpiece for Ryan's ideas? And as you can probably guess, the backlash was immediate and brutal. Social media platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok were flooded with accusations of manipulation, deceit, and outright betrayal. Blake really had us fooled. One viral tweet read, racking up thousands of likes in just a few hours. Another fan wrote, Ryan ghostwriting Blake's scenes without Baldoni knowing? That feels shady as hell. This was never about creative collaboration. It was sabotage. But here's where Reynolds really messed up. Out of nowhere, rumors started swirling about his involvement in Baldoni being dropped by his agency, WME. At first, people brushed it off as just another wild Hollywood conspiracy. But then, the truth came out. It wasn't a rumor at all. Ryan Reynolds was directly involved in getting the young director blacklisted from the biggest talent agency in Hollywood. And guess when it happened? Right after the Deadpool after-party. Reynolds allegedly approached an executive from William Morris Endeavor, the very agency Baldoni was dropped from, and told them they were working with a problematic individual. And just like that, Baldoni was out. It's almost unbelievable, right? But after everything we've learned over the past few weeks, can you really put it past him? He and Blake already got the movie, but clearly that wasn't enough. Ryan likely believed that if he could completely isolate Baldoni in Hollywood, blacklisting him and turning the public against him, he'd eventually be forced to give up the rights to the film. And if that happened, Reynolds and Blake would be free to do whatever they wanted with the sequel. No restrictions, no oversight, no one standing in their way. This wasn't just about creative control anymore. It was personal. Reynolds didn't just want the film, he wanted total dominance over every aspect of it. He inserted himself into every conversation, every decision, and every public appearance tied to this project. Who owns the production? Company? Who controls the next script? Who decides the future of the franchise? Reynolds wanted to be involved in it all. He even hijacked the press tour, doing promo skits where he took direct jabs at Baldoni, mocking him in the most public way possible. And to make it worse, he even managed to sneak his name into the end credits. Take a second and put yourself in Baldoni's shoes. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into adapting a beloved novel, carefully crafting each scene, working tirelessly to get everything just right, only to discover at your own premiere that the most talked about scene wasn't even yours. It wasn't even Blake's, as everyone had been led to believe. The truth is, Baldoni didn't even get to see the final cut of the film before its release. He had no idea what changes had been made until he was sitting in that theater, watching it unfold on the big screen. And if that wasn't bad enough, leaked text receipts from Baldoni's team confirmed that Blake had pressured him into handing over control of the film. She got her way. They released her version, their version, and Baldoni, the director and producer of the film, the man who had fought to secure the rights in the first place, was completely shut out. He was the last to know. He wasn't just betrayed, he was erased. Here's your rewritten paragraph with an additional 100 words while keeping it natural, conversational, and engaging for a voiceover. Lively spoke as if she had personally crafted that rooftop scene, proudly championing it as her vision. She pushed hard for Baldoni to compromise, but when it became clear he wouldn't budge, she blindsided him. She kept demanding credit, even in that 2023 Forbes interview, painting herself as a creative force. But the truth? She couldn't even write a single scene on her own. She had to bring in her husband. What does that say about her ambition to be a director? The fact that Ryan secretly penned such a crucial part of the film, despite having no official creative role, is the ultimate betrayal. Baldoni didn't just lose control of his own project, he was outplayed at every turn. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, Lively had the audacity to shift the blame onto him when the film started receiving backlash. Why? Because she had a couple of minutes of bad publicity? It's absurd. None of this had anything to do with Baldoni's decisions. The reality is, people simply saw through her act. She presented herself as this passionate, artistic visionary, but in the end, she wasn't even responsible for the changes she fought so hard to implement. It's hard not to wonder, how long has Reynolds been pulling the strings behind the scenes? Was she ever really making creative decisions? Or was she just a mouthpiece for Ryan, delivering his ideas and pushing his agenda onto the set? The more you think about it, the clearer it becomes. She was just the messenger. She tried to frame this entire situation as a story of female empowerment, but let's be honest, that excuse doesn't hold up. Sure, one day she might become a producer or a screenwriter, but in this case, she was neither. She was simply the face of someone else's decisions. And that's the real scandal here. Ryan wasn't just influencing the film from the sidelines. He was rewriting scenes, reshaping the story, and making changes no one had asked for. This isn't some small indie film we're talking about. It Ends With Us was one of the most highly anticipated book adaptations in recent memory, with a massive fan base expecting sincerity and emotional depth. Given the novel's focus on domestic violence, the film needed to be handled with care. Instead, Lively turned the press tour into a personal branding exercise, focusing more on herself than the serious themes of the movie. Fans were furious. They wanted to see real conversations about the film's heavy subject matter, but instead, they got a fun, lighthearted promotional campaign that felt completely tone-deaf. And when the backlash hit, what did she do? Instead of owning up to her mistakes, she pointed fingers at Baldoni. Fans were shocked when they realized she had accused him of financing a smear campaign against her, especially since so many believed she deserved every bit of criticism she received. People weren't just reacting to the film's disappointing execution, they were reacting to how out of touch she appeared. She struggled to answer even the most basic questions about the themes of the movie. In one interview, when asked how she would recommend people discuss the film's subject matter with her, she jokingly suggested sharing her location. The moment was painfully awkward. This was a movie about domestic violence, and she was cracking jokes. The tone was completely off, and fans couldn't believe how disconnected she seemed. Meanwhile, Baldoni thought he had made real friends when he started working with this seemingly charming Hollywood couple. Instead, he walked into a trap he never saw coming. Ryan was the mastermind, and Lively was his front-facing enforcer. Together, they carefully maneuvered control of the project, sidelined Baldoni's authority, and ultimately pushed him out of his own creation. It's like hiring a plumber, and instead of just fixing your pipes, he starts telling you how to redecorate your entire house. They brought her on to act, and somehow she decided she was running the show. Now, it's no surprise Baldoni is taking legal action. This isn't just speculation, it's highly probable. If Reynolds secretly rewrote scenes and Lively knowingly covered it up, imagine how many other creative decisions they manipulated. At this point, you could argue Reynolds was basically the invisible director of this movie. His influence ran way deeper than anyone realized. And as for their so-called wholesome and supportive Hollywood couple image, that's all smoke and mirrors. It was never real. Lively wasn't just suggesting changes. She was actively rewriting scenes without being asked. And that's what makes the situation so insane. Imagine hiring someone for a job and they decide to take over everything. That's exactly what happened here. With one careless slip of the tongue, Blake unknowingly confirmed Baldoni's worst suspicions. This wasn't just hearsay or gossip anymore. This was undeniable proof that Reynolds had been operating behind the scenes, making decisions no one else approved of. And for Baldoni, who had poured his heart and soul into this adaptation, it must have been a devastating realization. Months of media scrutiny and public skepticism, this revelation felt like vindication. But for Blake and Ryan, it was the beginning of an uncontrollable PR nightmare. Baldwin's fans hope he will be able to reference this interview with E! News as proof of the things that were done to him behind the scenes. But will he be able to do that well? Time will tell. He infests himself into every area of your life. And he did this. Justin Baloney, he's like, who are your friends? Okay. Who owns the production? Compania, who owns the next movie scripts. I am going to infest myself everywhere. I'm going to be doing your movie premiere. I'm going to be doing promos and making. Now let's get into the deliciously messy details of how Ryan Reynolds desperately tried and spectacularly failed to salvage his crumbling public image. Honestly, folks, this one's juicy enough to make even the Kardashians blush. I don't know whether his PR team had some kind of malfunction, or should we call it a glitch. But standing there, at the PA Center in New York City, was Hollywood's beloved golden boy. And what was he doing? It's not clear, but according to reports, she came for an event anyways. The superstar was walking out, only to be surprised by a crowd of adoring fan sounds. Sweet and spontaneous, right? Except this moment was about as authentic as a 3 Bill-esque eagle-eyed fans on TikTok immediately started dissecting the scene, and trust me, the details they uncovered are wildly embarrassing for Reynolds every single. Fan in this conveniently timed mob seemed to magically have the same shabby cardboard sign scribbled in bright markers, eerily identical handwriting, same tape colors, same. Overall design isn't that too much of a coincidence. One popular TikTok stardanil didn't waste a second calling out this charade, and honestly, she did it so beautifully that we're still clapping. She pointed out something painfully obvious. No phones. Yep, you heard that right. It's 2025. People, since when do fans not whip out their phones the second they spot a celebrity instead? These fans just happen to have perfectly crafted signs, but zero interest in capturing the moment makes sense, right? But we've also got to note that these autograph hounds tend to come to this specific spot a lot, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be arranged. There are instances where Meghan Markle was caught doing it. For example, also a tactic that celebrities use to fake a scene. Meghan Markle has been caught doing that several times right before she was meeting Prince Harry, that they just happened to be there with pictures of her from Suits. It's like, come on, girl, clearly someone tipped off in towels. Scathing breakdown, she summed it up perfectly, saying that it's virtually impossible that all those people randomly bumped into Ryan Reynolds carrying identical signs with no phones out recording. And to be honest, she's got a solid point. I mean, celebrities calling paparazzi on themselves is nothing new, but this move by Ryan feels one step too far, but it's all part of the game, let's be real. Though this wasn't just embarrassing, it was humiliating. It revealed how desperate Reynolds has become staging fan interactions to trick the public into thinking he's still beloved. And now what's interesting as, well, look at the reactions. What's happening? People are looking back. And it looks like Ryan really is scrambling to put up that all as well. Nice. But the tea doesn't end there. PR expert Emily Austin, who's seen it all in her years managing celebrity image meltdowns, chimed in with a brutally honest assessment, and it's absolutely damning. According to Austin Reynolds' random fan encounter, was nothing. more than a calculated PR stunt deliberately staged to drown out the relentless backlash from his involvement in Blake Lively's messy feud with Justin Baldoni. In other words, Reynolds knew exactly what he was doing, manipulating the media to shift the narrative from his rapid, lie-deteriorating reputation back to our months of media scrutiny and relentless public speculation finally led to this bombshell revelation, which felt like a long-overdue vindication. But for Blake and Ryan, it was just the beginning of an uncontrollable PR disaster spiraling beyond their grasp. Baldoni's supporters are now hoping he can use that explosive E! News interview as undeniable proof of everything he endured behind the scenes. But the real question is, will it hold up? Only time will tell. What's clear, though, is that Ryan wasn't just a silent observer. He didn't just dabble in the project, he embedded himself in every aspect of it. It was like he systematically took over, one step at a time. He infiltrated Baldoni's professional circles, figured out who held power over the production, and gradually made himself indispensable. Before anyone realized what was happening, he wasn't just influencing the movie, he was controlling it. From the premiere to the promotional campaign, he had a hand in everything. Now, let's dive into the deliciously messy details of how Ryan Reynolds tried, and epically failed, to salvage his crumbling public image. Honestly, folks, this is the kind of drama that could make even the Kardashians jealous. It's unclear what exactly went wrong with his PR strategy, but let's just say if his team had a game plan, it backfired spectacularly. Standing at the PY Center in New York City, Hollywood's golden boy was caught in what was meant to be a heartwarming fan moment. But instead of boosting his image, it only made things worse. Reports say he had shown up for an event, but it's what happened next that raised eyebrows. As he walked out, he was surprised by a crowd of eager fans, seemingly desperate to catch a glimpse of him. Sounds touching, right? Well, not so fast. Sharp-eyed TikTok users immediately started dissecting the scene. And let me tell you, the details they uncovered are straight up embarrassing. Every single fan in this so-called spontaneous crowd conveniently held the same type of flimsy cardboard sign written in identical bright marker scribbles taped up with the same colors. Coincidence? Yeah, right. It didn't take long for internet sleuths to call out the absurdity of it all. One TikTok creator, Tanil, wasted no time in exposing the setup, and honestly, she did it so brilliantly that people are still talking about it. She pointed out something so painfully obvious that it's shocking no one thought about it sooner. Where were the phones? It's 2025. When have fans ever seen a celebrity in public and not instantly pulled out their phones? Instead, these so-called fans conveniently had matching homemade signs, but absolutely no interest in recording the moment. It just doesn't add up. Now, let's be fair, autograph hounds often hang around that spot, hoping to catch celebrities. But does that mean this whole thing wasn't staged? Not necessarily. In fact, it wouldn't be the first time a celebrity orchestrated a fake fan interaction. Meghan Markle has been accused of pulling similar stunts before, conveniently being spotted by fans holding outdated Suits memorabilia just before meeting Prince Harry. Coincidence? Again, highly doubtful. Someone obviously tipped them off. Tanil's sharp takedown of Ryan's scene summed it up perfectly. There's just no way an entire crowd randomly bumped into him, all armed with identical signs and zero phones recording. And honestly, she's got a point. We all know celebrities. Calling the paparazzi on themselves isn't exactly new, but Ryan's attempt at manufactured adoration took it to a whole new level, and instead of coming off as beloved, it made him look desperate. What's even more interesting is the ripple effect this moment created. Now that people are looking back at his recent behavior, it's becoming painfully obvious. Ryan is scrambling. He's doing everything he can to convince the public that all is well. But no matter how much he smiles and waves, people are seeing through the act.pr expert Emily Austin, who has seen countless celebrity meltdowns over the years, didn't hold back in her brutally honest assessment. And her take, absolutely damning. According to her, this entire fan interaction was nothing more than a carefully crafted PR stunt, deliberately staged to drown out the relentless backlash he's facing for his involvement in Blake's feud with Baldoni. In simpler terms, Ryan knew exactly what he was doing. He was manipulating the media, trying to shift the public's focus away from his plummeting reputation and back to his carefully curated persona as the charming, beloved movie star. But the truth? It's not working. The cracks in his perfect image are finally starting to show, and people are paying attention. Ryan, the beloved actor adored by the public, suddenly found himself at the center of a bizarre controversy. Every single one of those homemade posters looked oddly identical, all crafted from the same cardboard, marked with the same bright-colored pens, and taped up with identical strips of blue tape. Seriously? Why did every person in that crowd have the exact same sign? The same handwriting? The same design? Was it supposed to be a coincidence? Are we really expected to believe that a group of random fans just happened to bump into Ryan Reynolds, all carrying identical homemade posters? The sheer improbability of it all was enough to make social media explode with laughter. Unfortunately for Ryan, this so-called fan encounter didn't serve as a distraction. It did the complete opposite. Instead of shifting the public's focus away from the controversy, it put him right in the crosshairs of ridicule. Memes flooded the internet, poking fun at Hollywood's so-called most authentic nice guy for resorting to such desperate tactics. Fans who once admired his wit and charm were now questioning if everything about his public persona had been carefully curated from the very start. Was this a one-time misstep, or had he always been this calculated? To make things even worse, PR expert Emily Austin weighed in on the debacle with a brutally honest take. She pointed out that these staged photos weren't just embarrassing, they were a desperate ploy to flood the media with positive press ahead of Blake and Justin's ugly courtroom showdown. According to her, Reynolds' sudden need for a public love fest only highlighted just how panicked he was. His once pristine image was crumbling before his eyes, and this ill-conceived stunt was a clear attempt to salvage what was left of it. The irony? The man who built his career on being effortlessly funny, relatable, and genuine was now being exposed as manipulative, insincere, and shockingly out of touch. Even casual observers started noticing things that felt off. Why wasn't anyone asking for selfies with him? In 2025, where everyone has a smartphone glued to their hand, why weren't there any fans filming the moment? Every single detail screamed staged, and once people saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Even the guys from Popcorn Planet, who tried to remain neutral, couldn't deny that the whole thing felt suspicious. While they stopped short of outright calling it a PR stunt, they acknowledged that celebrities often know exactly who the autograph hounds are. Ryan wasn't some clueless star caught off guard. He knew what he was walking into. He understood the optics of the moment and likely saw it as a golden opportunity. But instead of looking like a gracious celebrity humoring his fans, he came across as someone clumsily orchestrating his own manufactured popularity.